Aligned with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman and Robert Webb. Hey everybody, how you doing? Wednesday edition of Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. If you want to get on the show, you can also hit me up on Facebook. You can hit me up on YouTube. We're also going to probably stream a little bit on Twitter today as well. So give me a call. A lot of stuff to talk about today, right? In our mind's eye, of course, it's 9/11. We'll get into that a little bit and talk about how it affected you, how it affected others, where you were at the time that the planes crashed into the building. I tell you, it was a surreal experience as I watched that happen live. So we'll get into all of that today as well. I also want to talk, and I know a lot of kids, hey Jackie, how you doing? I know a lot of kids, the millennials, are probably not listening to the show, which they should, and some of them are in school. But there's something playing out right before our eyes that, whether you agree or disagree with it, it's prima facie evidence why you need to keep your business off of social media, okay? And I'll just tell you, you may see some personal things like a birthday, my kid's birthday, something like that, but you don't see much of my personal business on Facebook. There's a reason why I do that, okay? And I think all of us need to take heed, because some of you all are just doing too much and you're condemning yourselves. I'm just going to be real with you about that, okay? So those are some of the things that we'll talk about today. Certainly we want to talk about the student jailed on sexual assault was freed after the judge said he was high achieving. I wonder what they meant by that. Okay. We'll also get into a news story about how an Alaskan swimmer got disqualified because she had a big old butt. I'm laughing, but it's kind of sad. All right. Let's see. Also, Mississippi man gets 11 years for burning a cross. And, of course, something that I had planned to talk about a couple of days ago, and we'll talk about it today, is the feud between John Legend, Chrissy Teigen, and the pathological liar of the United States. So we'll get into all of that today. I tell you, Chrissy Teigen ain't playing. She ain't having it, dog. So we'll get into all of that today and a lot more. But before we do that, by the way, Robert Webb is out today, so he'll be back tomorrow. But before we do any of that, we got to make the show right. And let's jump into Black Facts.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
So today's Dynamic Black Facts, and it's a two-parter, okay? And both of them relate to 9/11, okay? So the first one is about Jason Thomas. I asked the question in my tease, who is Jason Thomas? And what does he have to do with today? Well, let me tell you the story of Jason Thomas. Jason Thomas was portrayed in the movie World Trade Center that was done by Oliver Stone. Jason Thomas was one of the first men to rush to the collapsed towers to dig out people. Yet in the movie, Jason Thomas, well, let me just say it like this. Jason Thomas was from Columbus, Ohio. Jason Thomas was a Marine who had just gotten back about a year before. He was in Queens to drop off his daughter when the plane struck the World Trade Centers. Jason, along with a friend of his, whom he met on the way, another fellow Marine, rushed to the scene and donned his military gear. He put on his boots, his Marine uniform, and he and another fellow Marine started digging through the rubble long before many others got there to try and help with rescues. Jason Thomas, afterwards, he had been there for 13 hours and got one police officer out. 13 hours. They found two guys, as a matter of fact. And he only called himself Sergeant Thomas. He was able to rescue, a couple of police officers, Officer Will Jamino and Sergeant John McLaughlin. He was first able to get Will Jamino out after about 13 hours. It was going to take another 9 hours to get Sergeant John McLaughlin out of the rubble. So he left only with the moniker of Sergeant Thomas. He goes home and they are talking about this guy who ran into the rubble, what they like to say, ran the wrong way to rescue, at least to help rescue some of these people. He realized his story was being told when the movie for 9/11 was about to be released. And he says, that's me. But when he ran into the rubble, here's what he was thinking. Someone needed help. It didn't matter who, he said. I didn't even have a plan, but I have all this training as a Marine, and all I could think of was my city needs me. That was Jason Thomas. Carrying little more than a flashlight and an infamous shovel, he and fellow ex-Marine David Carnes climbed the mountain of debris, skirting dangerous crevasses and shards of hot metal, calling out, "Is anyone down there? United States Marines." As I said, it took 13 hours for Officer Jamino to be freed. Thomas said he returned to Ground Zero every day for another 2 weeks to pitch in, then walked away and tried to forget. I didn't want to relive what took place that day. But when the movie came out, Jason Thomas, one of the initial heroes on 9/11, what I didn't tell you is that Jason Thomas was a black guy. He was a brother. But when the movie came out, Jason Thomas was portrayed by William Mapober. I believe that's how you pronounce it. William Mapother is a white guy. Did you hear what I just said? Jason Thomas one of the many heroes of 9/11, a black man, rushed to the scene. And when they made the movie, they made Jason Thomas a white man. Now, filmmakers say, and they've apologized to Jason. Now, certainly they could have done their due diligence, because the two officers that were rescued by the two Marines, I'm pretty sure they said one of the guys was a black guy. But movie producers claim that since the movie was already in production, they couldn't change it. That's a lie. They could have changed it. Because what I've seen and what seems to me about 9/11, where when it's portrayed or reenacted, maybe it's just me, but it seems like there are a lot of white people that think that was done to them. White America. When there were people of all races who died that day. So I'm going to take my hats off to Jason Thomas, a real American hero that has been ignored for over a decade. And that's our Black Fact for today.
Listening to Black Caucus Radio. For more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people, on JordanairRadio.com.
And if you would like to sponsor Black Facts, give me a call at 615-554-0568. I'll hook you up with a nice ad package. We got to get this rolling here. All right, so today is 9/11. There are commemorations going on all over TV. I must admit, I was going to watch a little bit of it this morning, but I couldn't because PLOTUS was on there. You know, that guy. The liar, and the pathological liar in chief. The pathological, whatever you want to call it. The pathological liar of the United States of America. You know, and I just thought, and you know, this Black Fact, you know, I'm seeing all these commemorations, and I didn't see that movie purposely because I didn't want to relive that movie. I didn't want to relive that tragedy. I'll tell you here in a moment where I was when I saw this happen. And I knew when I saw it that it was intentional. Didn't know who it was, but as they broadcast it on television, I knew it was intentional. But that's Jason Thomas. There were a whole lot of black folks that died in that tragedy. We rarely hear about them. We rarely hear about them. I don't know why. I'm just going to do a quick Google search. I probably should have did this. Let's see if I can find out. Because I'm curious. Well, what I was looking for in Google is, let me see if this will bring up at least a picture. What I was looking for in Google, because there were over, 2,700 people, almost 3,000 people who died. I think the official death toll is like 2,996 people. I was just curious how many people were black. Because maybe it's just me, but I don't recall any, at least much coverage as it relates to black people who died on 9/11. Not that it's, well, maybe you should. It should matter, shouldn't it? It mattered enough that they could make a movie about it and exclude one of the heroes of 9/11 who was a black guy. I don't know why that just popped in my head, but it did. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you want to talk on the show. Let's see, looks like we've got a caller. Caller, what's your name and what would you like to say? How you doing? Okay. All right, Miss Mays, you didn't win. You didn't talk to me, but you'll probably need to come down to the station. The station is 1501 Main Street. 1501 Main Street in Little Rock. All right, you have a good day. Miss Mays wants her pizza. But what I was trying to find, and if someone's out there, if you're listening to me, is there a list of the black victims of 9/11? Just a list of black victims? I'm curious because if you think about it, and I know some of y'all, most of you all were, well, some of y'all were living, some of y'all weren't. I don't see many pictures of. I remember the sister who had the iconic picture where she was covered in soot. I remember her, but I don't remember many others. I'm quickly trying to do a Google search. No, I don't. I'd have to take some time and look, but I don't. I know there were plenty of them, but my point being is that it's amazing how black people are excluded from tragedies that happen here in America, as if we're not part of the victims. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm being a little picky. Maybe I shouldn't be picky today on a day of remembrance. Maybe I shouldn't be. But isn't it amazing how white people want you to remember things that happened to them, but they don't want to remember things that happened to us, and even more so, they don't want us to remember. Is that just me? Am I saying this wrong? Because it makes me wonder. Let me give you an example. How about the tragedy that happened on May 31st, 1919? Do y'all know what tragedy that was, right? That was the Tulsa massacres. You know, that massacre where an entire black city area was bombed by the Air Force, the United States Air Force, the first and only time the U.S. military, other than the Civil War, has waged war on its own citizens. Countless people were murdered. The first time that the Air Force had actually bombed a United States city, black people were hung, they were shot, they were stabbed, their houses were burned out, their buildings were looted and destroyed, If you've seen pictures of Tulsa, yeah, it wasn't a 9/11, it was a May 31st. And this very country attempted to hide it for generations. Wouldn't talk about it. In fact, there were no remembrances. There were no commemorations. Just like there were very few, or there were none for the people of Elaine or Ocoee, Florida, or Rosewood. And whenever black people bring that up, oh, that's the past. Why are you talking about that old stuff? So am I to understand that they can commemorate their sadness, atrocities committed against them, and we are not to do that? That doesn't really make sense to me. Does it to you? I'm just curious. Does it? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to make a point. Because commemorations are sad. When we have these types of things, it's usually because there has been tragedy. It's usually because there has been an agreement. Remember Pearl Harbor? Remember that? And how everybody remember that? Remember how everybody talked about Pearl Harbor? And the good thing about Pearl Harbor, though, at least they got it right when they retold the story. I remember the movie Tora, Tora, Tora. Do y'all remember that movie? I saw that movie at the Cinema 150. And it was so graphic. But at least in that movie, they didn't forget to portray Doris Miller. You all know Doris Miller, don't you? Doris Miller was an American Navy man. In fact, let me just read. They called him Dory. He was an American mess third class in the United States Navy. During the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, Miller manned anti-aircraft guns and attended to the wounded. His actions were recognized by the Navy, and he was awarded the Navy Cross. He was born October 12th, 1919. He died in 1943. Ain't that something? Bet y'all don't know that about him, do you? And everybody always says, remember Pearl, remember Pearl. You know what I'm saying? Never forget 9/11. But when black people say, remember Tulsa, remember Elaine, remember Rosewood, remember the MOVE bombing in Philadelphia, no one cares. And then when they recreate it and make their movies, like Oliver Stone did for the World Trade Center, he leaves out an essential character. An essential character, Mr. Jason Thomas. My point is this: commemorations are fine. They're great. Whatever you want to do with them, that's fantastic. But don't leave us out as to pretend as though we weren't there. We didn't participate. We've been a part of this entire process from day one. And there were black people who died on 9/11 just like white people. So if y'all didn't notice, I worked in another black fact, which was about Tulsa. You realize that the bodies in Tulsa have never been found. Those people who were murdered, those men, women, and children, business owners, fathers, uncles, mothers, cousins, their bodies have never been found. But they tell you, y'all don't think about that stuff. Don't talk about that stuff. Just like the bodies, the 247 bodies, many believe that there were up to 700 people, black people, who were murdered. As I sit here, you're talking about a tragedy. See, what happened on 9/11, that was done by a foreign body. What happened to the people in Tulsa and Rosewood and Elaine and Philadelphia was done by Americans to Americans. In fact, in Elaine, we know for a fact that in Elaine, Arkansas, the story is told that people were running to a train and thinking that they were escaping the white mob, and they were gunned down by military machine guns. But they tell you don't think about those things. They tell you don't think about the atrocities that America committed against you. Don't think about those things. But when we commemorate, we expect you to get in line. We expect you to accept what we say. Do as we do. I'm all for commemorating 9/11. It was an atrocity. But you see, when a 9/11 happened, we mobilized our troops and went and killed over 1,400,000 Iraqis. You remember the Iraqis who had nothing to do with 9/11. George Bush, Condoleezza Rice, all of those whom I call war criminals. They went and bombed and destroyed a former American ally. But they don't want us to think about the atrocities that they committed against us. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. This is a somber day. So let me tell you what was going on with me on 9/11. So I was living in Nashville. I was doing my morning show, the weekly sports magazine. Well, no, it was called the daily sports page. And I was working two jobs. I was also a computer technician for Dell. So I would work from 6 a.m. to 9. That was my morning show. And then I would leave my show and go to Dell, where my shift was from 10 to 7. Fortunately for me, where I was living at the time was on the way to Dell, so I would always stop, and it would take me about 10 minutes to get to Dell. So I would leave the station, go home, cook me some breakfast, turn on the news. This was my routine every day. So I turned on the news, and of course, there was the news. And it was telling us that planes had been hijacked. And I did not have the news on no more than 3 or 4 minutes when that first plane hit the first tower. I was stunned, just like the people that were on air at that time. Was shocked. Wow. And I thought maybe a pilot something had happened. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine what had actually happened. I thought, yeah, did the plane crash? What happened? Minutes later, the second plane hit the second tower. And it became apparent to me just by watching what I saw that was deliberate. And then, of course, the tragedy continues to play out. And I remember leaving home late. That day I was probably 20 minutes late to work. Never late. And I remember driving through the neighborhood, screaming at the top of my lungs, they just bombed New York. Now, many of the people they probably thought I was crazy. But if I stopped at a stoplight, I would roll down my window to the car next to me, and I would scream over at that person, "Have you seen the news?" Many of them said, "No, what are you talking about? The World Trade Center just got bombed. And it's falling." By the time I had negotiated those 10 minutes to work, everybody, in fact, the servers at Dell were working full speed, because everybody, to a man and woman, as you walked by their desk, and there were rows and rows of cubicles, as you walked by those desks, you could see everybody had the news up on their screens, fixated. I sat down at my desk, and I too turned it on. And as we had callers who would call in for various things, the conversation quickly turned to, "Are you watching the news?" The horror of what I was witnessing exacerbated as people began to jump off of the buildings. By this time, it was probably about 11:30, and the supervisors came by and said, "Hey, look, based on what has happened, if you all would like to go home and be with your families, you can." And I left. And I spent the rest of the day fixated on the television, watching in horror. How could someone do that? And then, of course, we got the other news that there was a plane that had crashed into the Pentagon in Washington. And there was another one that was aimed at the Capitol, but it had been taken down. We don't know what happened on that plane, but stories were that this last plane, people got wind of what was going on in New York and decided to fight the hijackers. 19 hijackers from Saudi Arabia. Let me say that again. From Saudi Arabia, one of our biggest allies. See, that's the one fact that has, over the decades, has really been untold. Yeah, we know it in the reports. We know it in the investigations. But Saudi Arabia is where Osama bin Laden hailed from. But George Bush, in his infinite wisdom, decided to invade Iraq and put on a proxy fake war that cost millions and millions of lives. Thousands of Americans were killed on a lie. Millions of Iraqis were killed on a lie. And even to this day, the Middle East has never been the same. You see, because what you all didn't realize is that Iraq was an ally of America. Saddam Hussein was fighting a proxy war with Iran. And America was funding that war. But it was so peculiar as Donald Rumsfeld and Condoleezza Rice, the president himself, and all of his security advisors made up this lie. Of course, Dick Cheney, we can't forget about him, made up this lie to attack Iran just so they could seek revenge on Saddam over some pettiness. Yeah, this is what came out of 9/11, folks. So those 996 people who died, more died as they went to war to fight a war that was unnecessary. See, so every time we commemorate 9/11, we should commemorate those 4,424 Americans who died in Iraq because of a fake war. $31,952 were maimed or injured in a fake war that was promulgated by the Republican Party. See, when you talk about 9/11, you got to talk about the whole story, the beginning and its aftermath, because we as the American people are still paying for that aftermath. Millions of veterans that are homeless, millions of veterans who are suffering from mental illness, millions of veterans who are killing themselves every day because they had to go to a war that made no sense, that was based on lies, and then they didn't get support from their own people. And not one of those officials, not one, spent one day in jail. Even after it was proven that the American people in Congress was lied to. Nobody went to jail. So here we are again today. We're commemorating. And it's sad. It was a tough day for me that day. I remember crying. I think what really brought the tears from me that day was when I saw those people jumping off of that building. They had given up. They were not going to be rescued. I still today don't really understand why helicopters and stuff couldn't have got up there and got some of them, but there's a lot of stuff that didn't make sense that day. Then, of course, you remember the conspiracy theorist that came out. There were some interesting pieces that came out of that. So that day, 2,996 Americans died in 9/11. Check this out. 1,455,590 innocent Iraqis died during the U.S. invasion for something they didn't even do. Now, who did I tell you, or where did those hijackers emanate from? Was it Iraq? I'm asking the question, was it Iraq? Was it Afghanistan? Was it Kurdistan? Was it Uzbekistan? No. It wasn't any of those countries. It wasn't Syria. It wasn't Iran. It was Saudi Arabia. And for the life of me today, even today, as I think about and I reminisce, I still don't understand why Saudi Arabia didn't pay a price for this. I just don't understand. Maybe you all can explain. Maybe those questions, because see, when you remember, when you commemorate, you also, it gives you an opportunity to go back and re-examine what happened. And you have to re-examine the entire process. You have to re-examine everything that emanated from 9/11. We know that the news basically excludes black people from being victimized by 9/11. We know that the hijackers of 9/11 were from Saudi Arabia. We know that an entire Republican administration lied America into a war where millions of people were killed, 31,000 Americans wounded, 4,400 killed in a war that should have never taken place. So as we commemorate 9/11 today, every time you see Dick Cheney, every time you see or hear the name Condoleezza Rice, George Bush, Donald Rumsfeld, the list goes on and on. Every time you see one of those people, you can almost say that the reason that one of the reasons that America is in the predicament it's in today around the world is because of that Republican administration. Yet, Americans are so stupid that they have voted another Republican into office. And they continue to vote these Republicans into office. And it ends up being just what we have today. More mess. So I think 9/11 gives us a great opportunity to really think back, to reminisce, to commemorate, to try and look and understand, to put fresh eyes on what really happened. I don't think the American people will ever really know. But what we do know is that Iraq did not bomb the World Trade Centers. What we do know is Saudi Arabia bombed the World Trade Centers. That's not me saying it. That's the evidence. And to this day, I don't recall them ever paying a price for attacking America. There's an old sports joke that when North Carolina, the basketball team, remember that scandal with North Carolina where they had tutors doing work for some of their players? Now you would have tended to believe that, hey, you got busted having tutors doing work for your players. You would believe that North Carolina would have been sanctioned. They weren't. And what came out of that is an old joke that says, North Carolina was caught cheating, and the NCAA decided to fine Western Kentucky 3 years probation. Now, in this heavy subject that we're talking about, that's a little light, a little joke. But when you think about this from our perspective and from 9/11 as a whole, when you go back and look, 19 hijackers, 19 of them were from Saudi Arabia. Why didn't the American people demand that Saudi Arabia pay its penance? In fact, why didn't the American people demand that all the money that we were paying Saudi Arabia for oil, why? Y'all do realize Osama bin Laden was a prince in Saudi Arabia. In fact, when it happened, remember, there were relatives of his here in America. They had to flee. Did you hear what I just said? They had to flee. I'm just curious. Because, see, this has been going on for a long time. That old saying, throw a rock and hide your hands. So Saudi Arabia said, oh, well, that wasn't us. That was Al-Qaeda. That was a wing of ours. If you go back and you check, and if you watch any of the documentaries, you would know that much of the money used to finance this operation came from Saudi Arabia. Hello? I know it's a tough day for some of you. It was a tough day for me that day. But unlike many of you, I began to ask questions. No, not the conspiracy theories about it was done purposely. As abhorrent, this government has done some terrible things. I don't really put much past this government but to crash 2 planes into the World Trade Centers. I would like to believe that this government isn't that bad. But then again, I'm a descendant of slaves. You see, I'd like to believe that slavery would never happen again in America. I'd like to believe that desegregation would never happen again in America. I'd like to believe that we've moved past that. And then in 2016, Donald Trump was elected president of America. Makes you think, huh? It certainly makes me think. It's crazy. And I think this is the first time that I've really actually talked about 9/11 in depth on my show. But I was so offended this morning when I tuned in and there was Donald Trump trying to commemorate something that he had lied about when he was running for president. You remember. You all forget that Donald Trump bragged that his building was now the tallest building in Manhattan, now that the World Trade Center had been crashed and thousands of people had been killed. Did y'all just hear what I said? This is your president. Before he became president, when 9/11 happened, he bragged about the fact that he now has the biggest building in that area. This was the same man who lied and said, hey, look, I remember seeing hundreds of Muslims cheering when the towers fell. And he's the president of the United States of America. How far have we really come? Have we really learned anything about 9/11? You know, when you commemorate something, the whole point in a commemoration is to learn, to understand, to make sure that it never ever happens again. And anything that led up to that happening never happens again. So we commemorate 9/11 because we say, never again. It will not happen again. So just like we commemorate 9/11, we should be commemorating Tulsa. We should be commemorating Elaine, Arkansas. We should be commemorating the Devil's Punch Bowl, where hundreds of thousands of excommunicated slaves were pushed into an area and was killed by Union soldiers as they begged for their lives. And more importantly, that area now is a peach grove, and the people there will not even eat the fruit because they know that fruit is being born on the backs of black blood. Nobody commemorates the Devil's Punch Bowl. And when it's brought up, why y'all talking about that stuff? "9/11 was a tragedy. But unfortunately, America and American people did not learn from 9/11. We talk all the time. I heard a report yesterday where the Trump administration is bombing in Somalia, many parts of Afghanistan. In fact, their bombing campaigns right now is more so than any other time in the history of those occupations. Now, why am I bringing that up? Because think about it from from the perspective of those being bombed. And oh, by the way, did you know that civilian casualties from that bombing is off the charts, and it had gotten so bad that even now the Trump administration will not even give the media numbers on how many civilians are killed in this newest bombing campaign? Do you know what the United States is doing right now? The United States in these bombing campaigns are doing nothing more than creating more young terrorists. Think about it. If someone came into your house and they killed your family, wounded you, but you lived, are you going to want revenge? What if your child, along with his other classmates, are driving down the street on their school bus on the way to school, and a rocket rips through the bus and kills everybody on the bus? Would you want revenge? Now, let's be clear. I'm not trying to justify what those terrorists did on 9/11. What I'm saying to you is that America has made this bed. And you, as American people, have allowed them to create a false narrative around the world where they are killing people wantonly. And those who survive are growing up hating America because of its imperialistic policies. That's what I'm trying to say to you all. Part of the problem of why this is happening is because of America. And if America was sincere about finding the culprits, then they wouldn't have invaded Iraq. They would have invaded Saudi Arabia. We'll take a break. It's called Black Focus Radio. If you don't understand yet, you will. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Talk to you for a moment. How many people have come up to you and said, hey, I didn't know you had a business? Yeah, that could happen when you don't advertise. I have a solution. Advertise on joynetradio.com and let the world know that you're in business. I know what you're thinking. Advertising is so expensive. I've got a great package for you that will cut your expense and increase your bottom line. It's only $125 for a startup and new business. Just call me, David W. Coleman, at 615-554-0568, and I'll put together a package specifically for your business. Now is the time to tell the world, hey, I'm in business. Come spend your money on quality goods in my store. Let us help you at joynetradio.com. Here's the number. Call me, 615-554-0568. We are here to assist you in building your brand.
Hi, this is Alvin from Habibi's 4317 East Broadway in North Little Rock. We still have the green top at your very next stop. The same great service, but more of it. Give us a call, 501-663-1553 or 664-2992, or call our toll-free number, 1-877-HABIBI-1. Diapers, pull-ups, hospital beds, wheelchairs, Simply Fit, diabetic supplies, underpads, and more. Your durable medical supply center.
Hi, I'm attorney Theodore Thompson from the Thompson Law Firm, and I want to help with your legal matter. Whether it's criminal defense, bankruptcy, personal injury, or family law, I want to help you. I can be reached at 501-503-5095. Don't face your legal issues alone. You need an attorney whose primary objective is to provide you with the best legal representation. Our office address is 415 North McKinley, Suite 710 in Little Rock. I'm attorney Theodore Thompson, and I want to provide you with the best legal representation.
I'm so glad I found the Kick Above. It's like my very own personal training studio. A Kick Above removed the guesswork and intimidation and offered me a very supportive and structured environment specific to my personal goals. Kim Leopard and her certified personal trainers even offered nutritional guidelines for my personal workout. It's about me at A Kick Above. Call 501-868-8850 or go to akickabove.com. Now, what am I wearing tonight? Thanks to A Kick Above, I look marvelous.
Serving the families of Clark County and the surrounding area since 1966, it's Mitchell Funeral Home. Understanding that a funeral is a celebration of life, the entire staff of Mitchell Funeral Home takes great pride in the caring, personal, and professional service they offer. Cremations, funeral plannings, burial policies, life insurance, notary, and monument sales are a few of the services we offer. Mitchell Funeral Home, Arkadelphia, 870-246-2611. Mitchell Funeral Home. Quality you can appreciate, service you can depend on.
You got it. Easy Rock's answer to your aggravation. Joy Network.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman and Robert Webb.
All right, what's happening? Welcome back to the second hour of Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you want to talk on the show. Robert Webb is out today. We spent most of the first hour talking about 9/11 and some of the interesting aspects of it, and tied that into how America wants black people to forget about the atrocities that were visited upon them, but they don't want us to forget about the atrocities that are visited upon them being the greatest society. So here's the weird thing about that, man. If you tell us to come together as Americans because of an atrocity, shouldn't that make sense for all atrocities, past and present? Should to me. But they want to pick and choose when they want black people to participate and how they want black people to participate, but they don't want black people to choose the commemorations that they have. You know, I said last year that if whites in Little Rock wanted to make a bold statement, white churches, white synagogues, white clubs, when we celebrated Juneteenth on June 19th last year, well, it wasn't on actually that day, but the commemoration was on a Saturday. They could have made a bold statement and showed up en masse and saying, hey, yeah, we're here to commemorate with you. Man, just think about that. If you really want change, why don't you understand our commemorations? And why don't you join us in commemorating those atrocities that were visited upon us by this government? And then why don't you join us in calling for reparations and making sure that occurs? Right now in the state of Michigan, not Michigan, but Maryland, there is a suit that's been going on for almost 13 years as it relates to how white governments, the government of Maryland, purposely try to undermine and underfund the HBCUs in Maryland. That a similar suit was brought forth in Mississippi, and Mississippi lost. They had to pay HBCUs $500 million. I'm wondering if UAPB here in Arkansas and Shorter College and Philander and Arkansas Baptist would have the guts and the gall to say, hey, look, let's sue the state. Because see, this really brings us back to what Jemele Hill was talking about, the millions of dollars that are being generated by black athletes for white universities, yet our universities are going to the dogs. I don't know if you all remember a few years ago, the athletes at Grambling, historic Grambling, they decided to boycott a game because the conditions and the facilities were such that they were dangerous. And the only way that they could bring light to what was going on was to embarrass Grambling. But really the fact is that many people pointed their fingers at Grambling and should have been pointing their fingers at the state of Louisiana, who had underfunded Grambling because it was an HBCU. And then we should point our fingers at ourselves because those athletes who go to PWIs and make billions of dollars for them, those very same athletes could go to HBCUs and there should be billions of dollars for our people, our communities. Think about it from this perspective. Pick a college, any big college. Have you ever been on campus? Look around when you go on that campus. Look around outside of that campus and see how businesses are thriving. See how it's a bustling community in and around those college campuses. See, we're not even talking about the billions of dollars that the athletes earn, but all of those ancillary businesses that make money off of college campuses. But when you go around black campuses, they're not that way. Because our resources are being used by others. And that's a problem. All right, so let me talk a little bit about, let me make sure I cover everything because I'm going to spend some time. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about Anthony Brown today. And it's not going to be what you think it is. It's going to really deal with social media. If I were you, if I were a parent, I would pay close attention to what's going on with Anthony Brown. Now you're saying, well, I don't want to follow that. That's about football. I don't know nothing about football. No, this is what I'm about to talk to you about. Excuse me. It's not about football. It's about a lesson that Anthony Brown is about to learn quickly. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. I'm also going to read something to you from one of the founding fathers that I thought was profound, Alexander Hamilton. I'll read that to you here in just a moment. Because, I tell you all the time that I'm a student of history. I believe that you can judge a man, a person, by their history. So one thing I've never done, and I think this is important, and I do want to cover this, because see, I've told you all over and over again, slavery never ended. Slavery continues to thrive in Middle Eastern countries, in Arab countries. Or should I save this for tomorrow? Let me just say that tomorrow's Black Fact is going to give you some information. I'm going to save this for tomorrow, because it's really profound. So here's another news item. According to WKRN out of Memphis, in Jackson, Mississippi, a white Mississippi man received an 11-year prison sentence Tuesday for his part in burning a cross near the home of an African-American family. Louis Bernard Rivette, 38, was sentenced by a U.S. District Court Judge Keith Starrett. Rivette acknowledging recruiting someone to help him build the cross to burn near the home of a teenager in a predominantly black area of Seminary on October 24, 2017. He also acknowledged building the cross to threaten, frighten, and intimidate people because of their race. Rivette expressed remorse at his sentencing. Here's what he said. I want everyone to know I'm not proud of what happened. I hate what I did. I can't even believe I did that. I never done anything like that before in my life. Apparently the judge didn't believe Rivette, and he slapped him. And he got 11 years, and he deserves every one of them. See, here's the point. That when you continue to, when you give these people penalties that are over the top, they'll stop this stupidity. But see, part of the problem is that our system of government is party to this. Here's another story. Student jailed on sex assault charge, freed after judge agrees he's high achieving. University of Florida, Ian Molansky, accused of battery, false imprisonment, was released on his own recognizance to face trial. Okay? He's charged with sexually assaulting a fellow student, and the judge agreed he was a high-achieving student. So wait a minute. Are you saying that if you're a student, you can go and rob a bank as long as you make straight A's? Our justice system is broken, and it's broken towards white males. His name was Ian Molansky. You know he's a white male, right? I'm just covering some older stories before I get into this Antonio Bell thing. Because y'all need to hear this about Antonio Bell. You all need to hear this. Let me make sure I got everything else. Let's see. We'll save that for tomorrow. Oh, by the way, the North Carolina Republicans held a vote. So check this out. So the Democrats in North Carolina, they were out commemorating the 9/11 ceremonies. So while they were gone, North Carolina Republicans had a secret vote. Man, these people are pathetic. These are Republicans. See, I've told you all over and over again that Republicans have no message. Republicans have no credibility. See, when you got to lie, cheat, and steal just to stay in office, that says a lot about who you are and what you are. This is prima facie evidence for us. It doesn't matter to me. This has nothing to do with race. This has everything to do with people. And I say that because I saw a story the other day, well, I read it yesterday, where 15 million people died because Republicans were trying to stick it to President Obama. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Those people died because many of those Republican governors, the majority of them were in Republican states, many of those Republican governors refused to take money for the affordable health care. Now think about it. If you remember, there were when the affordable health care passed, many of it was designed to give states an open purse to expand Medicaid. And there were countless numbers of governors, Republican governors, who refused that free money. And consequently, over 15 million Americans died because they couldn't get health care. These are your Republicans. You know, at some point, you have to put your party down and do what's right for the people. But see, Republicans are so sold out to corporations. I read another piece yesterday, celiac disease. You know, in 1991, celiac disease, you all know what that is, right? You all know what that is? That means that you are gluten intolerant. In the early 80s, late 80s and 90s, having a gluten intolerance did not exist. And as we move forward to today, you meet people all the time who are gluten intolerant, don't you? Yeah, we do. It's called celiac disease. But you know something curious that in the report that I read, that there is a parallel line of increase between report of celiac disease and the overuse of glyphosate. It's a chemical that was created by Monsanto that they spray on wheat and corn, anything that is used, any grains that are used for bread. You can trace the increase in that pesticide and the increase in celiac disease in Americans. No, don't give me that stuff. Well, they just discovered it. They know more about it now. No, you rarely had people having a problem with gluten. Now, why am I bringing that up? Because many of your Republican leaders are bought and paid for by Monsanto. It's not about party. It should be about people. And when it gets to a point that you take party over people, you no longer need to be in office. So check this out. Here's another one. Amid the water crisis, Michigan's top health official said Flint residents, listen, they have to die of something. You hear that? He was a Republican. It was a Republican administration who changed the water lines. They didn't care about those people in Flint. Why should they? The majority of the people in Flint didn't vote Republicans. So since you don't vote for me, that's my party. So I can't help you. Are y'all understanding what's going on here? (855-525-5683). So let me close out this about Republicans. And then I want to talk about Antonio Brown. Check this quote out by Alexander Hamilton. It was published August 18th, 1792. The truth unquestionably is that the only path to a subversion of the Republican system of the country is by flattering the prejudices of the people and exciting their jealousies and apprehensions, to throw affairs into confusion and bring on civil commotion. When a man unprincipled in life, desperate in his fortune, bold in his temper, possessed of considerable talents, despotic in his ordinary demeanor, known to have scoffed in private at the principles of liberty, when such a man is seen to mount the hobby horse of popularity, to join in the cry of danger to liberty, to take every opportunity of embarrassing the general government and bringing it under suspicion, to flatter and fall in with all the nonsense of the zealots of the day, it may justly be suspected that his object is to throw things into confusion, that he may ride the storm and direct the whirlwind. Who does that make you think about? Was Alexander Hamilton prophetic in seeing what we have today in the White House? I'm just asking the question. 855-525-5683 is the number. Now, I want to talk about Anthony Brown. Those of you who don't know, and no, this is not about football. It's about a person who plays football. Anthony Brown is probably one of the most prolific wide receivers that we've seen in some time. He has multiple consecutive 1,000-yard years in receptions. Many people are saying that if he continues on this pace, he'll literally walk into the Hall of Fame. But Anthony Brown has been reading his press clippings. And regardless of all the other stuff, here's why I'm bringing this up. Here's a guy who walked away from $30 million. And look, that money to them, they figure they can make some more. When you're at the top of your trade, there are certain things that you can do. You know, I remember Brad Hopkins, who played for the Tennessee Titans, who would come on my show in Nashville, and would quickly tell you that when he first got into the pros, he was told, you need to know your place. And that's not racist. That means that there were things that Brad Hopkins could do and get his ass kicked off the team, but there were things that Eddie George could do and no one would say a thing. Now, that's not to say that Eddie George was doing anything illegal, but I'm just saying that's just the hierarchy of sports. If you're good, you're allowed to get away with more than the average player. And then quite often, the good player might screw up, and guess what? The coach goes and suspends the punter, the third string punter. Hey man, what did I do? You're the third string punter. I got to take it out on somebody. But of all the drama that has taken place through and about this young man this summer, yesterday, stuff hit the fan. And the reason I'm saying this is because, see, now Anthony Brown has been accused by a young lady, and we do know her name. Her name is Brittany Taylor. He has been accused of sexually assaulting her twice and raping her once. Now, here's where the social media comes in. Now, obviously, and by the way, she's suing him for $75,000. Now, before you jump on this young lady and say, well, Why did she take so long? Look, I'm not getting into all that mess. If the young lady was assaulted, it don't matter how long it took her to report it. She shouldn't have had to be sexually assaulted. She was actually his personal trainer. And she considered their friendship as just that, a friendship. But here's the problem with Anthony Brown. He basically documented some of the things he did to her. Now, I can't read his messages on air because they are so profane. But Anthony Brown, in one of his posts to her in writing, while she was asleep, he performed a sex act on her. That's illegal, dog. You do know that, don't you? If she was asleep and you performed a sex act on her, dude, that's rape. Now, I'm not an attorney. I'm not trying to be one. You know, one of the things that I told my son, you know, there are so many women out here. You are a handsome young man. You know, when he was growing up, this was even before he became sexually active. I would tell him, you're going to grow up to be a good-looking young man. Women are going to fall at your feet. But one of the things I told him that if she says no, you respect that. I don't care if you're about to begin. If she says no, I don't care how hot and bothered you are. Go take a cold shower. That's how I taught my son. When I would do my rites of passage camps, we would talk about sexual assault. I would tell the young men, no means no always. You can't take nothing from anyone. But Anthony Brown said that this never happened. Anthony Brown said that it was consensual. But he also says in one of his messages that he blanked his blank on her back, unbeknownst to her. That's sexual assault, dude. Now, here's the problem with this. Let me read a little bit more of this. I'm going to try. You know, in June of 2017, this is from the court papers. During another training visit, Brown and Miss Taylor were watching a church service on Miss Taylor's iPad in Brown's home in Miami. As they had during their college Christian fellowship days, they often read scriptures, prayed, and watched services together during training visits. On occasion, Miss Brown was behind Miss Taylor as they watched the service on her tablet. Unbeknownst to Miss Taylor, while she was focused on the religious video, Brown was masturbating behind her. Before she knew it or understood what was happening, he had did to do on her. Specifically, Miss Taylor felt a wet spot on her back and then suddenly realized what had happened. She screamed. Unfazed by her reaction, jokingly responded, Brown said, "Oh, blank, you know, I'm sorry," and left the room. This goes on and on. So here's my point about Brown and social media. When I look at some of these young people's pages, I don't know if you look at your young person's page. Okay? Some of you have decided that I'm not going to even look at your page. I'm going to unfriend you because I don't want to see your mess. Now, if they're grown, that's one thing. But you know what? Even if you're grown, you have to be careful of what you're posting. You have to be careful of what you're sending in instant message. I've told you all over and over again that once you put it on the internet, it never goes away. It never goes away. Let me give you some computer 101. So when you type that message and you hit send, that message is copied 1,000,000 times. Literally. Because what it does is that when you want to recall that message, it doesn't take you 5 minutes. It doesn't take 10 minutes. It doesn't take a half hour for you to recall that message. When you click on that message is right there. It has to be that way because it is copied. So the server can make it available to you when you want it. I went out, if you heard the Black Facts today, I had a Black Fact about Jason Thomas. That happened back in 2001 or 2006 when the movie was made. When I was doing research, all I did was type in Jason Thomas. It popped up just like that. Articles that were back from 2006. In fact, the article that I read to you today was from NBC News, dated 2006. And it popped up immediately once I clicked on it. You know why? Because it's sitting out there on a server. And all I had to do was type in Jason Taylor 9/11 and it popped up immediately. So anything that you put on the interweb, the internet, whatever, the World Wide Web, whatever you want to call it, it never goes away. Even when you send a private text, it never goes away. It goes to a server that is sitting there waiting on it to be recalled. So Antonio Brown, like a dummy, typed all kinds of messages to this woman. There's one text that's just horrible. I can't even begin to read it. It's just terrible. If you think what I read a few minutes ago was too graphic, go out and read some of these texts. Now, my point in bringing this up is, dude, you convicted yourself. Now, here's the problem with this. Right now, she's only filed a civil suit. It's the preponderance of evidence. But what if a enterprising district attorney decides that, hey, based on what I'm reading in this filing in civil court, this was sexual assault. I'm going to bring charges. And the dumbass has convicted himself because of what he typed on social media. Dude, this is like we tell you when you talk to your kids and they get pulled over by police, they don't talk to the police. That's what I taught my kids. You don't answer any questions. You ask for an attorney. You plead the fifth. The same when it comes to social media. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there are so many of you young people, your children, who are posting stuff on social media. Remember the story of the young black guy who shared a sex act of a young lady, and they sentenced him to prison for sharing, and the young lady was underage. Y'all remember that story I read to you all a few months ago? And everybody was saying, oh, that's too harsh. Oh, well, wait a minute, child pornography is real. You had sex with an underage girl and then turned around and shared it with the football team. Oh, yeah, you need to do some time. I don't feel sorry for him. You violated her privacy. And the reason he didn't know is because nobody is telling him about the internet. And I know that saying, oh, well, he was young, that was just wrong. I think they gave him 5 years. But you know what they say, ignorance of the law is no excuse. What I'm trying to get you all to understand here is some of you parents don't even go in your child's room. If that child lives in your house, and you know what? This is going to sound strange. I don't care how old he or she is. And you pay the mortgage, you, mama and daddy, that's your house. It's kind of like if you go and rent an apartment, you know that the landlord can come in anytime they want. In fact, when you read that lease, I don't know if you read the fine print, but it says it on your lease. Why can't mom and daddy do the same? And some of you all should. Some of you all ought to be going and reading. Every one of you who have young people, yesterday I posted an article about 15 things that parents need to know when it comes to the internet. Let me see if I can find that again. I didn't talk about it yesterday, but I posted it. The internet is a window to the world, and in some cases, worlds that we don't want our children traversing. At least not yet. There's some stuff that's posted on the internet, I don't dare click on it. In fact, this story was ran by Channel 11, locally here. And it's entitled 15 Apps Parents Should Look Out For on Their Kids' Phones. Do you know what your children are doing on Facebook? Do you know what they're doing on Snapchat and Meet Me and Bumble and Kick and Scout and Grindr and TikTok and Live Me, NOLA, Whisper, Hot or Not, Calculator, Ask AFM? Do y'all know? You should. You should know what understanding the internet is all about. But some of y'all don't. Some of y'all don't. And what is about to happen to Anthony Brown, where everybody was talking about he was smart like a fox, Antonio Brown, I should say. You're not too smart when you're exposing yourself of criminal behavior that you've committed against someone else, and you're spreading it all over the internet. Because at the end of the day, when you text someone and you cussing them out, when you cuss texting them, guess what's happening? Guess what's happening? They're just taking screenshots. Oh, you don't know what a screenshot is? Let me just quickly educate you. A screenshot is something that is done on most phones that all you got to do is hit a button, and anything that's on that screen, it will take a digital image of that. In other words, it takes a JPEG. And that person who hit that screenshot button will be able to save that. 855-525-5683 is the number. Need to think about this, folks. So I'm talking about Anthony Brown because Anthony Brown is an idiot. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name? All right, Miss Mays, you got to call me back. We're in the middle of a show right now. Our show will be over at 2 o'clock. Sorry about that. But here's the point that I'm trying to make to you all. Is that you have to create some etiquette for your children and get them to understand what they are using could get them in a heap of trouble. And keep your private business off of social media. Give you an example. You can go to my social media page right now. You'll see pictures of my children, but you won't see a lot. You'll see, but you won't see much about me at all. You won't see much about my love life, who I'm dating, whether I'm single, whether I'm married. You'll see stuff about my business. You'll see stuff about this show. But my private life is my private life. If I want you to know about my private life, then guess what? I'll pick up the phone and call you. I'll tell you. But I'm not going to post my private life for all the world to see on an open media where I don't own. You understand that when you post stuff on this media, when you send private part pictures, you understand that that can go anywhere. Don't you understand? See, here's the thing about computers and the internet. Everybody is connected. Think about the internet as a street. You can get on one street and you can go anywhere in America. But the difference is now, it's not just America, it's all over the world. So when you post stuff on the internet, you expose yourself. I can go out on the internet and pull up the average account in Facebook, and I can exploit you based on what you post. People do it all the time. You're out there single. You're a woman. You're lonely. Well, that enterprising evil person out there, she lonely. Let me go through and look and see what her likes are. Let me see how many kids she has. Let me see if she has her address. Folks, this is real. The internet is like the wild, wild west. And if you're not careful on what you post, and I'm just not saying the internet, but your private messages. So if you're cussing someone out on Instagram, in the DM, if you're threatening, I watched a video prior to my show where this guy killed this sister. This guy lived in Texas. He was dating a sister in Louisiana. The girl both women knew each other. And they were going back and forth about this guy. This guy drives to Louisiana, rushes into the house with an AK-47. Her family runs out. He ends up making her call on live Facebook his girl in Texas and apologizing to her. Then he shoots and kills her live on Facebook. Now, certainly, he was sentenced to 100 years in jail. But he wrote his own sentence. Now, be clear here. I'm not condoning what he did, but I'm saying that why do people seem to believe that when you post your business on Facebook, that's cool? I just don't get it. No, I'm not going to post where I live. You might get a post of me in my house, but you won't be able to see where I live. I don't want you to know. If I wanted you to know, I'd call you up. If I wanted you to know all my personal business, you know all my personal business because you'd be a friend of mine. And even my friends don't know all of my personal business. But some of you all put all your business on Facebook, Instagram. And then you wonder how people are able to manipulate you. Even the people that you think are your friends, they are able to use your business that you post on Facebook to manipulate you. I remember when this thing first started happening, the first thing people would do, they would post on Facebook that they're going out of town. Yeah, I'm going to Las Vegas on this day and this day. I'll be back on this day and this day and this day. They come back and they've been robbed. Their house has been cleaned out. And they wonder, well, how could this happen? Well, dummy, you just told the robbers, probably somebody you know, that you're going to be out of town for a week. They probably came, cooked dinner, probably bought groceries, ate up all the groceries, ran up your cable bill, watched all the pay-per-view, watched porn on your cable, then stole your TV, your furniture, and your stereo. And then you come home and say, wow, they knew exactly where everything was. Of course they did. They were your friends. And you told them when you were leaving. Folks, y'all got to get educated about this interweb thing. It's cool. Trust me, I'm an old computer tech. I had access to the internet long before a lot of people did because I work for Dell. I still have my very first email account. It's daddylove1@juno.com. Did you know at one point, to show you how long I've been in this business, did you know at one point you could get free internet? Y'all remember NetZero and Juno? Those were free internet companies. They would give you, I believe it was 12 hours of free internet per day. I believe that's right. I still have my old, that was my very first email account. So I've been in this business a long time. I know what I'm talking about. I can go out to that email account right now, and there's stuff still in that account from almost 20 years ago. Hello? But you are letting your children run rampant. This is like the wild, wild west. You're letting your children run rampant. Man, it disturbs me when I see a little kid running around with a cell phone. I wonder if their mom is giving them any etiquette on how to use that. Well, you couldn't have given him too much because he's a 6-year-old. He wouldn't understand what you're saying. And you wonder how these people are getting in your business. Some of these people that are your friends, they're actually your enemies. And you're giving them ammunition to destroy you. And you wonder, well, I don't know how this could have happened. No one would have known this. Yeah, they did. It's on your Facebook page. It's on your Instagram. Or you go get a job. You apply for a job. And they come back and they say, well, you know what, Miss Smith? Those butt pictures on your Instagram account, we don't want that kind here at our company. What butt pictures? Because if they've got some enterprising investigators, even though your stuff is private, they can look at your stuff. So what I'm saying to you, right now playing out before our very eyes, Antonio Brown has basically slit his own throat. Because what you said in those texts are about to come back to haunt you. They are. Because, see, here's the thing. If this young lady was a gold digger, as he claimed, she'd be suing him for more than $75,000. Hell, he just got a $9 million signing bonus with the Patriots, which he's probably not going to see. But she'd be suing you for more than $75,000. This is to make a point. And so what if she went to him and said, hey, can you let me have some money so I can open up a business? So what? That doesn't give you the right to sexually assault this young lady. It just doesn't. And you've used the internet. I'm sitting here and looking at this. I wish I could read. Oh, God. Just do yourself a favor. I'm going to post this article from Atlanta Black Star. I haven't posted it yet, but let me go ahead and post it right now. Because it's shocking that you would send this to her. Look, here's the bottom line. If you got a dispute with someone, now, I'm not trying to tell you how to evade the law. But if you got a dispute with someone, it would be better. You'd be better off calling them up on the phone. Because I'm going to tell you, a good cussing over the phone, it works for me, man. I'm going to be honest with you. because that's going in my ear to that person's ear. Now, look, I don't do that kind of stuff. But years ago, I'll be honest, I had to give a few people a good cussing. Woo, Lord. I'm just being real. But if you got to do that kind of stuff, pick up the phone and call. Don't give a text that can then be later used against you in a court of law. And we hadn't taught our young people this. We haven't. You go to some of these young people's page and man, I mean, I blush. Some of it's so graphic. I'm like, how old are you? How old this here person is? It's so graphic. It's mind-boggling to me. So I wanted to bring that up because it's important for us to understand that there is an etiquette that you need to follow when it comes to the internet. And if let me put it this way, if you keep getting in trouble on the internet, or if stuff keep happening to you and you don't know how it's happening, go look at your page and see what kind of stuff you're putting out on the internet. I'm serious. If stuff keeps happening to you and you're saying like, how'd they know that? Or why does this keep happening? I didn't know anybody even knew about this. Go to your page. Do you know that there are people who actually, and I'm sure they still do it, you know that there are people who actually will read the obituaries? You know why some of those people do that? Because they're trying to find out when the funeral is. There's a reason why they always leave someone at the house when the funeral is going on or the wedding is going on. You know why they do that? Because there are people who actually read those announcements, those obituaries, and find out when the funeral is so that they can go and rob your house. Because they know, hey, there's a funeral. I know they done got all kinds of gifts. I'm going to go rob their house. Same principle applies here. The difference is now that you're not just telling them when the funeral is. You're telling them when the wedding is. You're telling them when you went to the doctor. You're telling them what kind of drugs you own. You're telling them what kind of sex you like. You might as well just open your front door and say, hey, come on in. Y'all come on in here. Come on here, y'all, and bring a camera. So y'all can take notes on my life. I'm just being real with you. So let me just give you a point of what I'm saying, all right? The only thing that's true on my profile is that I went to Little Rock Central. And that I'm the president of Coleman's Dynamic Products. Other than that, check this out. It says, lives in Nashville. No, I don't live in Nashville any longer. I live in Little Rock. It says single. You don't know if I'm dating or not. It said study avoiding police brutality at Black Man in America University. It ain't none of your business. I ain't trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be rude. But we've seen over and over again Facebook be the detriment of us. Look, you know what's funny? You know what's funny? I was just reading a post there and someone has already responded to the post. She told, girl, sit down. No, she doesn't. And I got to respond back to this young lady. What if this were you? I'm just saying. Anthony Brown is going to lose this lawsuit. And here's the other thing that's so weird about it. This guy makes millions of dollars. This young lady apparently was wanting $75,000 to keep her mouth shut. That's all. Dude, you throw that away on a part at the strip club. You could have did Donald Trump. Okay, I'm gonna pay you this money. Here's an NDA. Here's an NDA. Duh. You think you're so damn smart, Antonio Brown? You could have given this girl the $75,000. You got plenty of money. Made her sign an NDA. Doesn't matter whether it's true or not. Made her sign an NDA, and she would have been gone. But what'd you do? You got your ego and your feelings all up. And now you done posted all of this stuff on the internet, and now you busted. Because this ain't a criminal case. This is a civil case. And that's just a preponderance of the evidence. And the evidence that I've read today is that you admitted to doing something to her. For all the world to see. Hello? So the point in telling you all about this story, see, it wasn't about football. It's about taking care of your business and keeping your business to yourself. Anthony Brown hasn't learned that yet. And unfortunately, this brother's about to be out the league. And again, if I can't stress anything more than anything else, here's what I'm going to tell you brothers out there, you so-called men. If you are as big a man as you claim you are, she'll want to give it to you. Hello? But when you decide that you're a bigger man and you decide to take it, then you deserve to be in jail. I don't care who you are. You can be a football player or you can be a president. And I don't care how much money you gave her to pay her off. If you assaulted that young lady, and based on the evidence that you provided at Antonio Brown, you did something to that young lady that was illegal. And because of your arrogance and your ignorance, dude, you're about to be out of the league. Now, you're fortunate that this is not a criminal case. But again, based on the evidence, an enterprising prosecuting attorney who wants to make a name for himself can certainly go after you. And then your butt's going to be in a sling. Hope you all enjoyed the show. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. I'm Dynamic Dave. I'll see you tomorrow. Right here, same time, same channel. All I can tell you folks, and my quote of the day is, have some damn common sense. Y'all have a good day.